Hello there, my name's Scott. Today I'm going to be doing a review on the UFS or Uninterrupted Feeding System for the Ggts, which is one of these, which I received from www.e-cigs.co.uk. That's e-cigz.co.uk. Before I start though, I must point out I did receive it free of charge for the purpose of conducting a review. My opinion of the product remains true, honest and accurate as always. Okay, so the UFS is a fairly sort of complex bit of kit. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and look at it in a bit more detail and I'll show you how to put it all together. So here we have all the parts that make up the UFS or Uninterrupted Feeding System. I'm going to be assembling it in stages just to make the video go a little bit quicker. Before I start, I just want to point out it's worth getting yourself a little tub of Vaseline or petroleum jelly and then applying this to all the threads on the individual parts where they screw together and making sure that you cover the O-rings with the Vaseline. This is for a few reasons, mainly because it helps the parts to screw together nice and smoothly, and it also helps prevent the O-rings from perishing over time. Now I personally find it to be quite a messy task applying the Vaseline, so what I've done, again just to save a bit of time and a bit of mess, I've already applied the Vaseline to all the threaded parts that require it. So you won't actually physically see me applying the Vaseline, but rest assured that it's already been done, and you will need to, like I said, apply the Vaseline to all the threads on any parts that connect. Okay, so let's get on with stage one. Stage one involves these two parts here. This section will actually screw onto the main body of the Ggts, and it's also where to screw the atomizer into, and this section here is the collector tank. So just making sure again that you place some Vaseline around the threads, take the collector tank, place it over the top, and simply screw it into place. In stage two, we're going to add the control ring, and again, if you notice, you have an O-ring inside here, and obviously the threads. So just make sure you place a smidgen of Vaseline on those, and also on the threads here, and then make sure placing the O-ring end on first, put it over the top, and start screwing it into place. Now you can see there's 4 little holes here, and obviously these are for controlling the airflow. So by closing it all the way down, you're restricting the airflow, and then by opening it up, you start allowing more air to come in. Okay, so at this stage, I would suggest that you fully close it. Stage 3 is to add this section here, and this is like the bottom of the tank, as it were, and it's also used to control the amount of e-liquid that is getting fed to the atomizer. So once again, just make sure you place some Vaseline on here covering the O-ring, and this actually pushes into place first, like that. Once it's pushed into place, you can start screwing it down. When it's screwed all the way down, then effectively that's at its most open position. When it's screwed up, then that'll be at its closed position. Stage 4 is to simply get the atomizer ready, and all you're going to need to do is take your 510 atomizer and take this atomizer extender, place that in the top, and just snap it into place. In stage 5, we're just going to very simply take the atomizer and screw that into place. It's advisable to screw the atomizer in quite firmly on this occasion. Okay, so now I've attached the atomizer, just want to give a quick demonstration on how you actually control the amount of e-liquid that is being fed to the atomizer. Now at the moment, this is screwed all the way down to the bottom, and that makes it in its most open position. And hopefully right down the bottom there, you should be able to see the gaps going around the base of the atomizer. So say now you need to start restricting the amount of e-liquid that's getting to the atomizer, then all you have to do is simply start screwing this up, and hopefully as you can see the gap is starting to get smaller and smaller, until eventually if you screw it all out to the top, you effectively are shutting off the e-liquid. So that is how you actually control the amount of juice that is getting fed to the atomizer. Okay, so for stage 6 we're just going to add on the clear part of the tank. So again, making sure you just place some like Vaseline around these threads here, and make sure you cover the O-rings. Once you've done that, slide that over the top. The O-ring section goes on first, and again just screw that into place. You don't need to go too mad here, just make sure that it's in there sort of snug. I wouldn't over tighten it. Okay, so before the next stage, which is going to be adding the e-liquid, just make sure that the control ring is fully closed. And also make sure that the actual tank is fully closed too, so no e-liquid is going to be fed to the atomizer as you're pouring in the juice. So make sure that's also twisted all the way anti-clockwise. For stage 7, we're just going to be simply adding the e-liquid. I'm just going to be using 5 ml of juice here, but the tank can actually hold, I believe, is 6 millilitres of e-liquid. So take your e-liquid and simply fill it up. In stage 8, you just need to add the top section of the tank. So once again, just making sure that you place some Vaseline around the threads here and along here. Place the top section on top and then just screw it down into place. Again, you don't need to go too tight when you're screwing this up, but just make sure it just bites nicely. And finally, for stage 9, we're just going to be adding the mouthpiece. And again, it also helps to have a little bit of Vaseline around these threads. And if you look on the top here, there is an O-ring. And I would advise that you take that O-ring out and give that a good coating of the Vaseline too. Once you've done that, just take the mouthpiece, again, screw that in. You can screw it in fairly tight, but then just make sure you back it off a bit as well. You don't need it in there too tight, but that initial screw in there, that just helps to seat the O-ring in the correct position. And that is the UFS all fully assembled and ready to start vaping. Obviously you do need to connect it to your actual Ggts. The reason I haven't done that is just obviously I want to keep it all in shot, so it's all nice and close up for you to be able to see. But all you need to do is simply place your battery into the Ggts, screw that into place, and then just screw that down until the battery feels nice and snug. So that is the UFS. Let's go and see what it vapes like. Okay, so that is the UFS, or uninterrupted feeding system. So I've attached it to my Ggts. I'm just using a standard 510 atomizer, and I'm using a 18650 3.7 volt battery. Okay, so once you've filled up your tank and you've attached it to your Ggts, first thing you're going to need to do is basically sort of unscrew your control ring a little bit to allow a bit of airflow. And me personally, I do sort of unscrew the juice tank as well, just to allow a little bit of juice to get in there. And then basically you just need to then sort of gauge it on the flavour and obviously the amount of vapour you're getting. If you feel like it's running a bit dry, then open up the juice tank a little bit more. And then just sort of keep going and twisting and the control ring and the juice ring just to sort of adjust it until you get to your sort of like magic sweet spot, as it were. So I'll show you in action anyway. As you see now, produces a really nice amount of vapour. Like I said, I'm just using a standard 510 atomizer in here. It works great with the standard 510s. It also works equally well with the low resistance ones. I've not vaped the standard resistance ones at like anything higher than the like 3.7 volts. I'm not into sort of 6 volt vaping. That's just me personally. Yeah, but either one, just works great. I do find that I have to do a little bit more adjusting than that with the standard resistance 510, because obviously it doesn't heat up quite as much, so there is that sort of slightly more chance that you're getting too much juice into the atomizer, so then you need to sort of try and burn that off. Whereas with these low resistance atomizers, I find that I can leave the like the juice tank sort of pretty much in its fully open position throughout the whole tank of juice without having to sort of worry about it. That seems to be enough, plenty enough juice in there, and obviously the extra heat that's produced from the atomizer is more than enough to cope with that amount of extra juice as well. So I'd say personally there's sort of less fiddling about if you're actually using a low resistance atomizer. Flooding wise, I've not really had any sort of major issues with flooding. I've had it on the verge of flooding, but like then, you know, you can just sort of start closing off the juice tank, you know, restrict the amount of e-liquid going into the atomizer, and then a few vapes later, then you're good to go again. The only time I ever had sort of real bad flooding was the very first time that I filled it up, and that was user error rather than the actual UFS, and that's because I filled it up but I hadn't actually closed off the juice tank. So basically that was in its fully open position, and as I'm pouring the e-liquid in, it's obviously going straight and up the atomizer, so obviously I ended up sort of with a bit of a flood there. But any other time, as soon as you feel as though it's starting to get a little bit sort of too gurgly, close off the juice flow, and then just sort of vape a couple of vapes, and that's it, you know, it's all sorted. And with the low resistance ones, you know, if it does start feeling as though it's running a little bit dry, which is, to be quite honest, when I was using the low resistance ones, it's probably only ever happened maybe sort of once or twice. Again, just to make sure the juice is fully open, or take a few drags without activating the button, just helps, you know, push a bit more juice up there without sort of burning it off. And again, the problem is solved again. Overall, no, like if I compare it to the last model I had, which I think was the AVS 2, to be quite, there's so many names now with different sort of variations of these. I can't quite always remember exactly what one it is I've actually used before, but I think it was the AVS 2, and I think that this one is a big improvement. Now, don't get me wrong, the other one, you know, it worked fine, but I found that if you did sort of start flooding it, or if it was running dry, then there's a hell of a lot more sort of fiddling about to do to try and get it to, you know, sort of balance out and start vaping well again. Whereas with this one, if it starts running dry, a slight turn on the juice tank to open it up a little bit, and you're fine again. If it starts getting on the verge of flooding, close it off a little bit, and again, you know, cut the drags later, and then you're back to sort of, you know, just sort of normal vaping again. So in that sense, and I also feel it's a lot easier to put together and assemble than the previous model as well. And obviously you've got the addition of the clear tank there, so you can actually sort of see how much juice is in there. Yeah, so for me personally, you know, I find it a lot easier to use and a lot better, a lot less hassle than what the previous version was. And there's not a great deal else I can really sort of tell you about it. You know, it seems very nicely made. Only sort of slight quibble I'd have, like, I think, you know, aesthetically it looks really nice like this, and the band at the bottom here for the bottom of the juice tank, which you would grip to sort of obviously open and close it, it's not got a knurled finish like what the control ring has, and I actually like that in the sense of how it looks. It looks a lot nicer without the knurled ring, but it can make it a little bit tricky to sort of grip hold of it sometimes, especially if you've got, like, you know, a bit of like the Vaseline on your fingers or a bit of e-liquid on your fingers, and you know, it does make it slightly difficult. But like I said, it's a minor issue for me personally. But looks wise, it definitely looks 100% nicer with being like a plain band there. But maybe just like a little bit of sort of grip there would be sort of quite handy for people, because it is, you know, it's fairly stiff. I wouldn't say you haven't got to sort of, you know, get a crowbar out or anything, but you know, you do need to sort of grip it quite tightly. And I think that if it's had some sort of slight grip around the edge here, then it obviously would make it a little bit easier. Anyway, you know, if you fancy trying one out for yourself, obviously you will need a Ggts as well. It doesn't come with the Ggts, but if you do own a Ggts and you fancy trying one out for yourself, go along to www.e-cigs.co.uk. that's e-cigz.co.uk. Also, thank you very much for watching. Also, come along and visit my website at www.ecigreviews.com, and it's e-cig-reviews.com. Cheers guys, happy vaping, see you later.